Did you go and watch him when he was kind of starting his comedy workshop?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I'll tell you, give you sort of an overview of that. You know, when Bill, I'm 5 years older than Bill. Okay, so this first thing I'm going to tell you, I'm thinking, you know, and I'd gone off to college pretty early when I was 16, and then turned 17 my freshman year of college. So I was probably 17 or 18, away from home, you know, at college, and I'd come home on the weekends, and Bill would. So he was 12 or 13. He was that young, and he would slide jokes under my bedroom door, and I'd write back and say, you know, this was funny, or I didn't like that, or, you know, whatever, because he was looking for input, and not that any of my input was valid, but I'd give it to him,
coming from a younger brother, any input from an older brother is valid.
That's a lot, yeah. Well, I was going to say, years later, in a couple of interviews, he would mention that, you know, that very early on he was getting that support. So, you know, I felt real good about that. But, you know, at the time, it was just, to me, being a normal bigger brother, you know what I mean? I mean, you know, we got along well back then, and you know, and it was fine. And so anyway, so there was that. And then another time, it must have been a couple of years later, but I graduated from college. Bill would have been 15 years old, okay? Right. And I was home again another time one weekend from college, and Bill said, come down to the comedy workshop in Houston, Texas, where we lived at the time. And, you know, this was 76, something like that. And there really weren't, you know, comedy clubs. There weren't a lot of them. And plus, no one in our family was in any kind of entertainment business. So the whole idea was odd, right. Is the point I'm trying to make. And he just kept saying, well, just get down there. I think you'll enjoy it. You know, go on down there tonight. So I did. I went with one friend of mine, and we went down there. Well, Bill was headlining the thing, and the place was sold out. And here he was, 15 years old or something like that. And it was hilarious. So I went and got some friends of mine, and we went, and I took them back the next night to see him again. And I remember a friend of ours named Melanie, she had asthma, and she was laughing so hard that it kicked off an asthma attack. And I'll never forget that, because, you know, it hit me kind of the power of being able to express yourself that way, you know. And here was Bill, my little brother, at 15 years old or whatever he was, up there doing that. You know, it was pretty bizarre, but I remember it very, very distinctly. And you know, he was just a young kid, and he'd already decided that's what he wanted to do, and he was already pursuing it. And then, you know, famously, and this was brought out in the documentary about Bill, American, and my mother still to this day denies it, but during that time, since Bill was not old enough to drive, right, would sneak out the second floor window of our house, and a friend of his with a license would be waiting for him in a church parking lot, and that's how he'd get downtown. We lived about 17 miles from downtown, and that's how he'd get down there. And to this day, my mother, we joke, she still thinks he's up there doing his homework or something. You know, to this day, she doesn't believe he ever did that, but he did that. He did it for sure.
So I wanted to also ask about, like, he obviously blew up in the UK towards the end of his life, the last maybe 3 years, I guess, of his life. But before that, it was a lot of years of kind of headlining clubs around the U.S., and I guess he called it his Flying Saucer Tour. It sounded like, since he was doing such intelligent humor, there must have been plenty of time of kind of feeling like the audience wasn't appreciating him.
Yeah, you know, I think, and boy, you being a comedian that travels, you probably feel it much more than I will be able to say it. But I think Bill did love it. I mean, I think that's why he did it. I mean, you know, he certainly had some jokes about it, you know, where, you know, playing in front of 25 apathetic people in Possum Ridge, Arkansas. And one of my favorites was, you know, it ruins relationships, and it's going to take a very, very special woman or lots of average ones. You know, I thought that was funny, but you know, but I do think that he enjoyed that. I honestly think it's what his calling was and what he was sort of tapped on the shoulder to do, and so I think he did. But having said that, I know it got tiresome. and traveling all the time and being in hotels and doing your laundry on the road and all of that kind of stuff that goes with constant travel. But I do know that, in fact, it was funny because he and I had sort of a mutual admiration society going with each other, where he always said he admired that I sort of had stability in my life. I've been married now 31 years, so back then when Bill was alive, I was approaching 15, which, was a pretty long time then too, and I always would tell him that I sort of admired in his freedom and his ability to just get up and go where he wanted and do what he wanted, so, and he acknowledged that, so, yeah, I think, it can take its toll on people, that, the constant travel, but, yeah, I think he did enjoy it, I do, when he was up on stage. He told me this after he was diagnosed with cancer, that when he went up on stage, it just went away. The thoughts of it went away. Right. The pain from it went away. And so, yeah, I think, at least to some degree, his home was on that stage, yeah.
Yeah, I've experienced the miracle of the stage cure in that one time I had some sort of debilitating stomach pain, and somehow did an hour show and didn't feel it the entire hour. Yet the moment I stepped off stage, I was in excruciating pain. But
yeah, I have tapes of some of those shows of Bill. In fact, the weekend that he was diagnosed, and then shortly before and after that. And I always look to see if I see any signs, like him, grabbing his sidearm, and he never did, except at the very, very, very end. In fact, I can give you maybe a little bit of a scoop here if you'd like, maybe.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, what I was getting ready to tell you, no one has heard. But, Bill did, one of his albums was Rant in E minor, okay? Right. And, in fact, just a couple months ago, Spin Magazine did their top 40 comedy albums of all time, and they chose that one number 11. So, nice. That, I know that, a list is a list and it's someone's opinion, but, there's lists that it's nice to be mentioned, So, anyway, that was a nice thing. And it certainly is the album that Bill is most known for after all of these years. It was recorded after he was diagnosed with cancer, and he just sort of let all caution to the wind and just sort of was really at his peak at that time. And I think that's what comes across on that album. But anyway, so one of the things that we are thinking about releasing, no final decision yet, but is the complete unedited version of the shows that were recorded live for Rant in E minor, because the Rant in E minor final version was edited and music was interspersed in there because Bill wanted to put something out with music, and so that and Arizona Bay had his other album that had music in it. But anyway, it was about probably an hour and 25-minute show that Rant in E minor, the CD, ended up being maybe right at about an hour or something like that, So we're thinking about as maybe like a 20th anniversary edition of Rant in E minor, re-releasing it and including as a bonus thing the entire uncut version of the show that was recorded that night that became Rant in E minor. But what it is it's things in different order and then some asides of Bill talking to the audience. Right. And some of those are he's sort of talking about his health. But again, at that point, no one knew, except our family, no one knew that he was sick. So it's just kind of interesting. That's the only tape of him, recording of him, that I did hear him sort of commenting about his health. He was making a joke about it. He'd say, boy, I can hardly breathe. I hope I make it through this show. And, people would laugh because he was a comedian and thought he was making a joke. But certainly knowing the circumstances at the time, I feel probably at that point he was beginning to feel it a little bit up there on stage. So,
you mentioned that, well, first of all, I think people would love that if you do put that out. I certainly know there's a lot of fans that would be thrilled. But you mentioned that Spin Magazine listed one of his albums as number 11, and it's good to see America and American publications finally giving him that appreciation. Did you ever think it would kind of grow like it has in America? I mean, he was already huge in the UK, but to see it kind of get to this level and for him to really achieve legend status now, were there any hints that that would happen after his death?
Yeah, no, I mean, when Bill, Bill, he had a certain level of success while he was alive. I mean,
right,
it wasn't that he had 2 HBO specials at the time, and in 1993, the year before he died, Rolling Stone magazine had named him the hot comic of the year, and so he was beginning to gain some notoriety. But when he was very, very sick, very much towards the end of his life, and at our parents' house, that's where he passed away, we were sitting around one day in the living room talking, all of us, and he went and got a publicity photo, a headshot of himself, and he put it on the coffee table there, and my mother said, "Well, Bill, what's that for?" And he said, "I don't want my family to forget me when I'm gone." And that has a lot of poignancy for us, but I also think that it didn't have, we did not sense that it would end up being such a big, I mean, now, no one's forgetting Bill Hicks. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, certainly our family wasn't. I mean, it was much more of a real intimate, personal thing, but I think back on that because, it could have, we, as his family, we were never going to forget him, but who knew it was going to grow into what it's grown into? It is really unbelievable. I mean, people have put a lot of Bill's clips out on YouTube, and I was adding them up, the views one day, and I quit adding, but over 40 million views when you add up all the clips. It's just, and I am sure that when he was alive, he never played to 40 million people, or 4 million people for that matter, so it is really amazing. I'll tell you one other interesting little thing about that. Yeah. I did a little T-shirt contest, and the winners were going to win a Bill Hicks T-shirt, okay? I got over 300 entries from 26 different countries around the world. So I mean, people know, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and certainly in the obvious English-speaking countries, England and Scotland and Ireland and Australia and New Zealand and Canada, but also, I mean, I've heard from people he's huge in Italy. They teach a course at a college in Milan about Bill in Italy. And so he's got a real following there. We just got contacted. We're translating his book, Love All the People, into Dutch and French. So
nice.
It's amazing. It is amazing. It's just, it's great to be a part of all of this, and but it's amazing. So, no, there was a long answer to your question. No, we did not see this coming.
Yeah, I don't know if you have something you attribute this kind of international love to specifically. I mean, I think that a lot of it has to do with his willingness to speak truth and to really break things down in such an impressive way. I mean, I got turned on to him kind of late for a comedian, which was like 21 or 22, I think I was, and I do remember kind of one of the lines that really made me realize how brilliant this man was that he was talking about the first Iraq War, and he was saying things that were still holding true for the second Iraq War. And I was thinking, this guy fucking knew the truth back the first time around, and here we are doing it again. And it kind of astounded me, but I don't know if there's something specific you attribute this international love to.
Yeah, well, I think certainly that speaking of the truth and people want or need, or whether they know it or not, but to hear that. But I also think that and this is what I try to tell people. I mean, Bill was a really good guy. He was just a good guy, a good heart, and we hear so many stories about people that did actually know him, and just his kindness here and his kindness there, and he was just a good guy. And I think that beyond, I mean, a lot of people and comedians tell the truth, a lot of them do. But Bill, I think what he added to it, and this is just my opinion, and I'm his proud older brother, so people can take it with a grain of salt. But I think that goodness and that heart also came through, and that's what a lot of the connection is, I believe, is that they're connecting with his soul and with his heart, and not just with his words. And to this day, when we meet people, what we usually hear is people don't say, "Oh, Bill was so funny." What they say is, "Bill Hicks changed my life," and it's just, that's incredible to hear. It's just transcended normal comedy. You know what I mean? And I think, again, my opinion, it's because his goodness comes through as well, his sincerity and his passion for the truth that he's telling, and that's what I always attributed it to. There's just some other message there that people connect with, and that's their words and that's their feedback, and that kind of thing, and it's real. It's very, very touching. I'll tell you a funny story about that. Many, many years ago, it's been now, it was the first time anyone ever called and asked me if I would participate in a Bill tribute night. For many, many years, our family stayed way in the background here. We're just, we're not so big, we're just normal people, and anyway, we let it kind of do its thing. But anyway, I said yes to this. So I went and they did, showed some clips and then did some Q&A afterwards, and I did the Q&A. So after that, people lined up to get my autograph. And when the first person said, "Can I have your autograph?" And I started laughing, and I said, "I'm nobody. You don't want my autograph. It's not worth anything." And they started crying, and they said, "But you're the closest we'll ever come to Bill. Please sign this." And I'm like, "Oh my God, this is some serious stuff here." So now I sign autographs, and I put "Thanks for remembering Bill." Like I told you, this has nothing to do with me or our family. This is all about Bill. But as representatives of that legacy, we can't go around being jerks about it. You know what I mean? So I do sign autographs, but I always make it about Bill, because it really it made me realize at that point how important this is to these people. And so, it's an amazing thing. And yeah, I just think some of that soul and heart and goodness comes through as well. I really do. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And his fans are very true fans. And you mentioned the 40 million hits on YouTube and things like that. And I can't help but think that it's opened up a whole new area for his words and his comedy. The fact that we can get so much kind of uncensored media nowadays, because he dealt with so much censorship in it while he was alive, and with that final Letterman spot being cut and those type of things, and I heard a clip of an interview he was in where he said, you basically learn that television doesn't want anybody speaking true ideas, and it still holds true today for the most part. I mean, it's still very difficult to even as a comedian to do much truth on television, and so YouTube and those type of avenues have definitely opened up a new area for this.
Yeah, absolutely. What's so ironic about that, and I think you're so spot on, that was what Bill, he had attributed to his big success in the UK, is they showed his entire Montreal Relentless set in prime time on BBC4 in its entirety with no censoring, So they got to see it, and they got it right off the bat. Where over here, as you know, that generally, you go to Letterman or Conan or Leno, and you get 5 minutes of watered-down material and try to do the best you can. And so, over there, they saw the full bill. And that is, to your point, exactly what YouTube kind of brings to the masses now. You see these people, what they're really like, and I think, again, that's how that connection keeps growing around Bill. Just more and more, when we hear from people, I'm sitting here looking at all my emails, because I'm the one that answers them, fan mail, And guy's 15 years old, and then I got one from like a 92-year-old ex-hippie, it really is. Now, those are probably two real extremes. I don't know how many 15-year-olds are out there, and I don't know how many 92-year-old ex-hippies are out there watching Bill, but it's a pretty broad spectrum of people, and certainly lots and lots of college-age kids, just discovering him now and everything. So, yeah, it just kind of keeps, and that's what keeps it growing. It just more and more people discovering it and discovering him and connecting with it. So.
And the documentary got around as well. How did you feel that turned out? I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. American.
Well, we totally 100% support that. Matt Harlock and Paul Thomas, the two directors, were two guys that contacted us. One of them, Paul, had worked for the BBC in London. And Matt, also from London, was an independent filmmaker, and they were huge fans of Bill's, and they approached us, and we've been approached a lot over the years, and we're very, very particular about what we do. We're not trying to commoditize Bill and make a bunch of money, or we just try to honor his memory. But anyway, these guys convinced us that their hearts were in the right place. So we sort of turned everything over to them and opened up all the books, so to speak, and let them do it. And so, yes, we love it. We like it a lot. And they really, it went a long way towards getting Bill out to so many more people out there. It was really great. It was good. We're pleased with the outcome, and we support those guys 100%. So.
Yeah, I thought it was excellent. Well, I'm gonna let you finish up here in a second. I wanted to, I proposed to my Twitter followers that if anybody had a question for you, and one I got, which I can't guarantee you'll have the answer to, but I believe it was Matt on Twitter, wanted to know whether you have any ideas on what advice Bill might have given to a young comic, or whether you heard him give such advice while he was around?
Wow, I do. If I had known, I'm gonna give me 1 second here. I'll tell you what. Because I sent somebody an email here. So when I was 23, 24, 25, something like that, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I was either, and this is not about me. That's why you can edit it out. But I was either going to go to Spain to play baseball. I heard they needed baseball players in Spain.
Okay.
Or I was going to become a comedian. So I went out, but the problem with that is I'm not funny, and I also wasn't a very good baseball player. But whatever, I didn't know what else I was going to do. So I told Bill that, and Bill wrote me a letter. And in the letter, he told me about being a comedian. And so last year sometime, someone asked me that. Someone, a fan. And I copied and pasted that part and sent it to them out of that letter.
No, wow, okay.
So what I was trying to find was, if I could possibly find this, to Steve, I thought of this today. When you go up at the workshop, so I've been talking about being a comedian. Here you go. You ready for the advice, Matt, the young comedian out there?
Yeah.
If you go up, if something doesn't get a laugh that you were expecting, and he underlines it, don't worry about it. Don't even show it. Just keep your energy up and move along as though you're at ease and confident. And good luck. You're hilarious and it's all in fun. So there you go.
That actually, although it's quite brief, is great advice, because I think a lot of comedians get pulled towards just what gets the most laughs, and they never get to explore broader topics, because it may, you may alienate. I'm sure Bill alienated 25% of the audiences in the U.S. I don't mean it's like 25% of a 100-person audience might not like his politics, but you got to do what you want to say,
Yeah, and that was this letter. The envelope was postmarked July of 1981, so Bill would have been 19 years old, and there he was giving that advice. So you could see already, he was seasoned enough that he could give advice about performing on comedy. You know what I mean? And he was just 19 years old. So, he knew. Well, I told the story earlier about when he was 15, and I went and saw him. So, by 4 years later, he was damn near a long-term professional at that point. So, anyway, there you go. A little bit of personal insight there. So,
yeah, I really appreciate that.
Sure. It's fun to find that stuff, So.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like although his legacy has grown definitely in the U.S., it sounds like he did get a lot of satisfaction in the success he had in the U.S. and the massive success in the U.K. I mean, was he fairly content with his career in a lot of ways?
I do think so. One of the things, and this is when Bill got sick and decided to move all his stuff back to my parents' house. He was living in L.A. at the time, and my parents lived in Arkansas. He asked me to fly out to L.A. and make that drive back with him. And so I did. And we took our time, and we took a few days. But during that time, we talked about, obviously, a lot of things. We knew where things were going and where, as far as with his health and all that. So, yeah, and we did talk about, I asked him that, if he had made, the money that he wanted to make to live on, and did he get the satisfaction of it? And he definitely did. I mean, again, I just believe it's, I think a lot of times comedians, and again, I got no expertise in this, take anything I say with a grain of salt, but, comedians do the stand-up as a means to some kind of an end, you know what I mean?
Right.
To get a talk show or get on a sitcom or whatever. But I think Bill saw it as the end. I really do. He got offers for commercials. He got offers for sitcoms, and he just didn't do any of that stuff. And so yeah, I think that he, I think he got a lot of satisfaction out of his life. I do. I really do.
This has been really great talking to you, Steve. I really appreciate it, and thank you for all you've continued to do for Bill's legacy and everything. And really, thank you for taking the time.
Well, I appreciate that you asked. I appreciate everybody out there remembering Bill. He was a good guy, and it's amazing to be a part of this. And, we'll keep sharing things as long as people are interested. And we have 4 or 5 more things lined up that might be shared here in the next, year to 2 years. And, if people are interested in it, we'll still try to find, I've got 150 hours of video here, never been seen, and probably an equal amount of audio that's never been heard. And, so we just kind of go through it and think if there's anything of interest in there. That's why I thought, a 20th anniversary of Ranthony Minor with the unedited, complete from beginning to end show that came from. To me, I mean, if I was a fan, I'd be interested in stuff like that, There's a lot of sort of significance to that, because it's how it was recorded, before the editing and all of that. So, and there's some interesting stuff in there that's never been heard before. So, anyway, yeah, so people stay interested. We'll try to keep fueling the fire out there. And I can just tell everyone, without sounding too corny or goofy, just on behalf of our family, we really do appreciate the support, and it's amazing to be a part of it. And I want to thank you, Lee, for, giving me the opportunity to come on here and speak a little bit about Bill. Appreciate it very much. So.